All right, everyone. Hello, hello. There we go. Yeah, that's good stuff. How you feeling? Good. We have an epic 3:30 session coming up right now. I want to. Who here has been to Aura so far? Right over there. How many? Oh, that's good. Wow. Wow. We're at like 10 people in the room. That's good. So Aura is rocking it. I did a sound meditation earlier today, and the sound meditation was so amazing. I dropped into my body. I really felt incredible afterward. Highly recommend checking out Aura. The next thing on Aura's schedule, there's an Aura wine experience happening at 6 p.m. Reservations required, but I think you just walk over there and reserve. And then Saturday morning, tomorrow at 10 a.m. is a morning meditation, and then at noon is a sound therapy. So remember to go check out Aura, drop into your body, give it that love. All right, so we have a super epic panel coming up right now. It is on Weed the People with Ricki Lake, Abby Epstein, and Mara Gordon, who are producers and stars of the film. And this is going to go emotional stories of children fighting cancer. This is a really, really important film to just get out to more people, for more people to be educated about the medical benefits. So, yes. So without further ado, let's give them a round of applause. Woo!
Hi, you guys. Good afternoon. I'm Ricki Lake. This is Abby Epstein and Mara Gordon. And this is like the first stop of our world tour, pretty much, Abby, right? We've been, this movie, Weed the People, has been a labor of love since really 2012. The stuff in the movie is 2013, but we have been on this journey to kind of make this movie about children with cancer. And my new watch is ringing. Hang on, sorry. Call declined. I'm so sorry. No, we've been just on this path of making this film for a very long time. The industry has changed so much from what we were experiencing in the beginning, including Mara. The way she does her business has changed dramatically. But it's really an honor. It's such a huge deal for me to see this movie to fruition, and I'm sure we'll get into how this movie came about. You may want to know, but we'll tell you later. But Abby is my partner, my work wife, and the director of this movie, and our last big movie, The Business of Being Born. And it feels so good to promote something that we believe in so strongly. And Mara is, safe to say, the hero of our film. One of a few heroes, and she really did literally welcome us into her home for years. And so anyway, it's just a real honor to be among this community to announce to you that the movie is coming. It is opening, actually, we have a screening tonight in Mill Valley at the Mill Valley Film Festival. There's one tonight and tomorrow. Yay! And then we're coming back, we're doing Berkeley, we're doing Sebastopol, we're doing San Francisco, all that stuff is in the making. We're looking for sponsors and partners. And without further ado, why don't I show you the trailer? We don't have the full movie here today, but let's show the trailer of Weed the People.
Chartered waters. We're lab rats.
There's enough research
the end.
for
That's
me
the
to
end.
know, one,
Let's
it
go to the
happens
beginning.
to be a very safe medication.
Stop,
and
stop,
two,
stop,
it works.
stop. Thank you.
That's like the last
That was the
10
end.
seconds. It should start on black with the logos.
Well, we can fill. Tell us when you're.
I could reenact it.
Oh, here we go.
I'm not doing this 5.5 years again.
They found over 20 tumors in his chest.
They said your daughter will not live to see her second birthday.
When your kid's got cancer, the rule book goes out the window, really. I wouldn't feel right if I didn't explore everything that there was.
When we found out about Sophie's brain tumor, I had no idea this would be the gift from God to her.
Would you let a first or second grader or any child use medical marijuana?
It's the same as every other drug. There are chemical compounds in the plant that interact with the cells in our bodies and have certain reactions.
The different ways that cannabis and cannabinoids seem to suppress cancer is quite impressive.
It's life and death. As a mom myself, I would do it in a heartbeat knowing what I know.
The
federal government is telling us there's not enough research on cannabis to deschedule it from Schedule 1, and then they're saying you can't do research because it's Schedule 1.
In 1937, the American Medical Association told Congress you should not ban this substance because there's things that we are already using this for that we don't have substitutes for.
He'd had to have Dilaudid to manage the pain, and that had created an opiate dependency, so they put him onto methadone.
Because it originates from our pharmaceutical industry, it's accepted by society.
I started reading about the anti-tumor properties of cannabis oil. It's all about supporting the side effects and helping the chemo to do its job.
One of the main reasons I want it legal is so that we can start having standards and not have it be the Wild West.
We're in uncharted waters. We're lab rats.
There's enough research for me to know, one, it happens to be a very safe medication, and two, it works.
Oh my God, that's where the cyst used to be. It's working.
I just find it staggering to accept that the billions of dollars that are spent on cancer research, that the medicine that we were relying on is made in somebody's kitchen.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
The whole drug policy reform issue is a human rights issue at its core.
Why, as a society, are we denying people the use of something that I have seen over and over and over again be helpful?
What kind of medicine are we giving her?
The good kind.
Right. So that's our trailer. And, you know, an interesting thing I just wanted to bring up is that, you know, we really, I think in approaching this movie from the beginning, I think, you know, we came into this in sort of from a personal perspective, and Ricki can share a little bit of that story, but it really was about trying to help a little girl that opened the door into this world. And we were so blown away by what we were learning and seeing and didn't know about cannabinoids. And we really wanted to bring that to mainstream knowledge and make this, you know, for lack of a better description, kind of an inconvenient truth of medical cannabis that could really hit the mainstream. So our experiences with that have been really interesting because we actually, we went to the Nashville Film Festival. And so we had this kind of cool experience of trying to like tap into this community in Tennessee, which was difficult, actually. It was difficult, you know, and they have a big CBD industry, but, you know, they don't have medicinal. It's very, very conservative state. But then we ended up winning the audience award at the Nashville Film Festival because people were just, you know, so moved. In June, we went to play at a film festival in Oklahoma City that was timed to be like a few weeks before their referendum. So they really wanted us there to push this vote, and we went and we did a lot of press. And after the screening, a local theater owner said, "Hey, can I take this movie and just play it all day in my theater the day before the vote?" And we said, "Yes, you can." And it passed. And I have to say, you know, like sitting in the middle of Oakland is one thing, but sitting in a theater in Oklahoma City, and those people at the end of the film were so quiet. They were so nervous and so quiet. And it was like almost the opposite. Like we had to like draw them out. You know, well, how are you feeling? And do you think this could change it? You know, and people were like, well, you know, I came in here 180 degrees on the other side. You know, and I'm just 180 degrees turned around. And I was like, that's great. And I was like, so is there anything in the movie that, you know, what helped you? What helped you sort of, you know, get past this stigma? And they were like, well, it's really good that you mentioned God in the Bible a lot. And I was like, well, it just happened that like a lot of the characters ended up to be pretty like spiritual people. It just like, we didn't mean to mention God. It was just like a lot of the characters just happened to be, you know, very, very Christian, and that helped, you know, that audience. And then in July, we were invited to screen the movie for Parliament in London, because I don't know if you read about, there was a bunch of very high-profile cases in the UK, and they've moved very quickly to pass some legislation to have some access because of some very high-profile cases of children. So, and we've seen that children have a lot of times really been the gateway to acceptance. Certainly here we saw that with children and epilepsy and Paige Fiji and the CNN. I mean, that really sort of opened the gateway. We're seeing that in the UK. So we made a decision in our film also early on to look at children and pediatric cancer, which is actually a much harder thing to look at than epilepsy, because it is not black and white. It is not like, oh, they were having 100 seizures and now they're having 4. It's cancer. So that's why we had to film for so many years, because we really had to show. So anyway, that's just a little background about sort of, where the film's at, and now it's going to kind of make its debut, as Ricki was saying, October 26th. And, so we're really hoping it catches a bit of fire before the midterms. We have a lot of advocates that are reaching out to us that want to set up special screenings for legislators in their state that have already maybe passed the law and now have to learn how to regulate, or want, to pass the law. So we are really at this point, I think, and because we're documentary, we literally have like 2 cents to do everything with. I mean, it's the worst business in the world. It's like not a business. It's like running the poorest charity in the world. It really is. It's just the dollars and cents of it. So we are really reliant.
Mama doesn't host a show anymore.
Well, I know. And it's like we've been so fortunate to be able to raise the money to make the movie, but now we really need this kind of grassroots support to promote it. We had to do a special kind of mea culpa with Facebook, because of course they pulled all our ads off. The first day we posted any ads because we had weed in the title. So luckily we knew some people, and we went really high up in Facebook and got the ads cleared. So the ads are cleared. You can boost them on your page. It's ridiculous, all the things we've had to deal with. But yeah, we weren't a Russian bot. Yeah, I know. So anyway, so we would love, after the screening or at any point, if you can go to weedthepeoplemovie.com, reach out to us. We have a system set up where you can host your own community screening. You can host it in a church, in a temple, in a, anywhere, in your basement. I mean, you can literally host these screenings anywhere. So we can get them sort of far and wide. But there's a lot of tools on our website. We have a whole social media kit you can download and share, and the posts are already made. But that's, really what we're looking for from this community. So, Mara, you talk about your experience being filmed.
So, when Ricki first approached me, or actually it was Ricki's late husband approached me, Christian, about doing this, I was like, hell no. I'd had quite a few. This was in the early days. I've been in this industry for quite a long time now, and so I'd had a lot of documentaries that have been made that were, making extreme claims, using words like cure, doing all these things, and I just was very skeptical. But we sat down and started talking, and we realized that the message that we were really looking to convey was one of this is the state of it, this is the fact that it's helping people, and people are dying, we've got to get this message out. So with that being the core value going into it, they came up, I guess Abby came up to my house, which I used to live over in the East Bay. I used to live in Walnut Creek, and they did a bunch of filming. It's kind of weird to look and see, like when we were making oils in kitchens instead of in our big facility with giant equipment and things. It's like, wow, we've come a long way. We still have that magic pan. It's going to be in the museum someday. We actually call it the magic pan. But my sister had cancer, and this is why we do this. She lived in Missouri, and I had taken some cannabis extracts to her at the hospital. They couldn't get her oxygen levels up enough. She was all this, and they had her on steroids maximum, and I'm like, just let me give her some CBD because it's ridiculous. It's good. It works, 30 times better than the steroids going to, et cetera. And instead, they told me I had to leave the hospital because I was a drug dealer. And I was actually, after my sister died, subsequently, I was, for any of you that know, I was sitting Shiva and mourning when I get a text from Abby saying, Mara, help, emergency, this 8-month-old baby was just diagnosed with cancer, help. And so I went to my family and I said, it's always about the living, not about the dead, so I'm gonna go take care of this baby. And I, getting so emotional. So I came back to California and went down to LA and met, and that's all in the film when you see it, is us actually meeting and giving Sophie her first dose. And then all the other children. I mean, I've had the honor of being entrusted to treat and dose and all these kids, and it's a huge responsibility that I don't take lightly. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity, honored, and totally respect the leap of faith that these parents had to take in order to put their bald babies in my hands. I mean, going against, in many cases, what the doctors are saying. We don't make false promises. We don't talk about cures. We don't say it's instead of allopathic medicine. We really believe that cannabis is an incredibly powerful medical or medicine that has the opportunity to be used in the toolbox of the medical community in treating patients. And that's my focus. Not even as much as the mainstream and the adult use and everybody can self-medicate with what I consider the over-the-counter, but making this film, it was really hard for me the first time I saw it because there's some tough stuff in there. But you know what? Those of us that have been in this industry, this is a tough industry. And those of us that are still standing, we are not standing without scars. And I think some of that's in there, and it really illustrates the obstacles and barriers to the science and the research and the treatment protocols that we need to be able to do. And not have this thing where saying there's not enough science, but oh no, you can't do science. So I'm very excited about this film. I'm very excited about the timing of the film because it's going to open people's eyes, hopefully before they go to the polls, and not if they don't have enough to go on already. People in the cannabis and support cannabis are not all necessarily liberals, and I think that we sometimes forget that. And because people in all walks of life and all philosophies and all beliefs, cannabis is the most widely used drug in the world, and so we need to meet them where they are. And I guess that's about it. Yeah.
You guys want to open it up to questions? If you have anything you want to ask us about. Yes.
Thanks. Mara, can you talk a little bit more about what it is in cannabis that is healing the pediatric cancer patients?
Yes, that's a very good question. So, first of all, there's over 200 different types of cancers already. And within every one of those cancer groups, you have all the subgroups of genetic anomalies, environmental, et cetera, that can change and shift and morph it. So we do know certain things like, if you know the endocannabinoid system, we have cannabinoid receptor 1, which is the first one that was identified. They call it CB1, which is primarily in your central nervous system and your peripheral organs. And then you have your CB2 receptors that are primarily within your immune system. Yeah, central nervous system, immune system, and peripheral organs. So we know what we're targeting already. Because what happens is they've done studies in mice models, in mice, in petri dishes, etc., and now we're doing some limited human in other places where you can, it's like a domino effect. You can get very, very technical, but you think about the receptor being a lock, like you have like a door lock, and THC in particular is that key. And when you activate the receptor with THC, it causes a chemical cascade that results in something called apoptosis, which is programmed cell death or cell suicide. So you have the cells dying and doing it in a much less damaging way than you have when you have through necrosis. Like, for example, when you use chemotherapies and radiation, it just kills everything, and then you're left with a lot of toxic materials. These cells are consumed and disappear. They're just gone. So you don't have the toxicities and whatnot that you have. So it's apoptosis versus necrosis, if you're going to look at it that way. We also have things like there's the ID1 gene, which is something that works when a cell multiplies on the RNA. The ID1 gene is what causes cells to multiply, and that's, of course, the enemy of cancer. People don't always, what kills people is the metastasis on cancer. So, and that is the spreading of these cells into other locations. CBD actively interferes with the translation of the ID1 gene so that we can target that with CBD so that it doesn't work directly the same on the CB1 and CB2 receptors, but if you have a type of cancer that has ID1 and gene involvement, and that would be like many of the breast cancers, prostate, colorectal, certain types of lung, you can actually do tremendous amount of healing using the CBD. I will say, though, that it has to be a full spectrum entourage. This is not a single molecule that you're targeting it with. This is a whole plant, and you still need to have some of the THC. Because yes, you want to stop the proliferation and spread, but you also want to kill what's already there. So you need to kind of have both. Interestingly, in the research and the data that we've been collecting all these years, we have found that there is zero correlation between the weight of the patient and the dose, but there's a direct correlation between the age of the patient and the dose. So we find that these small children are walking around on 500, 600, 700 milligrams of THC, and somebody that's 50 years old with the same diagnosis would be, well, they'd be comatose, but they would, we could affect the same thing with maybe 60 or 70 milligrams a day. So that's why you'll see these kids taking these enormous doses and going to school. It doesn't even faze them. Yeah.
Ricki was at, do you want to tell them about the dinner you were at last night at UCLA? Just some of the research. So just so you know, this is actually being researched.
Yeah, it was really amazing to be, again, ArcView kind of made this connection where I was invited to this very small, intimate dinner at UCLA, and it was for their Cannabis Initiative Research, Cannabis Research Initiative. And it was so interesting sitting there. First of all, I felt like a fish out of water because it's all these, researchers and doctors and, and I'm a talk show host. But we've followed these children since 2013. They've been doing this research study for 18 months. So it's like, and I just raised my hand. I wanted them to be aware of the fact that we're doing this film, and this film is coming out, and it's going to be, hopefully reaching the mainstream. But really, our thing wasn't scientific, but we studied these children for 5.5 years. I feel like we can help each other, and it was just really encouraging to see where this is heading and to see that we were so ahead of the curve, like to think of how far we've come, where we still need to go, but it's just really encouraging.
Yeah, and in the film itself, I don't know, I can't remember if it's actually, if it's clarified in there particularly, or if it's identified clearly, but we know every milligram of medicine these kids have used and have lab results associated with those medicines. So that is valuable data that's been being collected on all these kids. So it's not like we were just saying, oh, you've got cancer, go eat a gummy bear. Or, this was when I got into this space, it was like I saw the I used to say I'm collecting data, and people would laugh at me. And now you can't swing a cat without hitting someone that's collecting data. So it's just, do they know what to actually ask? That's the first question, and what to collect. But we were doing this in as scientific a way as we could within the constraints of a non-legal, non-supported environment.
Hi, thank you. My name's Leanne. Love what you guys are doing. I've been looking for the movie, waiting for it to come out since you guys started, so this is great. But since I've noticed that you started doing screenings and everything at these different film festivals, so you must have kind of a wide audience. How's the reception been from those that are in the medical industry, outside of the parents who must be floored, but the real medical people that you're talking to now, how are they viewing you guys, and are they actually reaching out and saying, let's go, or let's work together?
For me, seeing the medical people that are in our film, like having them see it, so like Sunil and Dr. Goldstein and Mara, of course, like that was like the first kind of bridge of like, okay, phew, they love the film. And now, the people at UCLA haven't seen it, they've heard of it, they want to screen it. We're going to be doing a lot of, I think, screenings in medical schools.
I think also the other thing is we worked really hard to include medical professionals in this movie. And let me tell you, it's not easy, because we are blocked from every hospital we went to. And it would be the same thing. We had a little patient at Kaiser. Oh, her oncologists are so supportive. They can't believe what's happening with the cannabis. They want to learn more. They want to talk to the movie about it. They've never seen results like this. And then all of a sudden, we're not even allowed back in Kaiser. We're not allowed to film the little girl there anymore. The doctors are handcuffed. They can't talk to us. They can't, they could reach out to professionals in the film, like they could reach out to Mara or Dr. Goldstein and try to learn more, but I'm saying like they couldn't give their testimony. And then the same thing, we would go to Children's Hospital LA, we'd do one shoot, and then they would catch wind that there was some cannabis aspect to this, and boom, we were just shut out. Right. UCLA was the only hospital that was really open to us. And you see an oncologist from UCLA who is like probably one of the only ones at the end of the film who's actually, and he's now sitting on Mara's board of her company, but because he was really able to comment on it because UCLA was more open. But it's awful. It's awful. And I hear it again and again. I have a friend in New York City who's stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer. It's the same neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer, same cancer that Steve Jobs died of. She had been using medicine from Mara for many years. Her oncologist at Sloan Kettering is like, I've never seen anything like this. She's like, clinically, this is one of the top pancreatic specialists in the country. She said, this is clinical. You're on a chemo that doesn't shrink tumors, and your metastases are shrinking. It's incredible. And yet, is Sloan Kettering doing anything? No. Can her doctor talk to us on camera? No. They're terrified of like losing federal funding. There's still this real block and stigma, and it's really unfortunate. So I'm hopeful that maybe, more medical professionals will see this and go, oh, you mean it's not just for symptoms of chemo? Oh, I thought it was just to treat symptoms of treatment of cancer. Oh, I didn't we're hopeful that like this movie will bring more legitimacy and more interest. But we did work really hard to include medical professionals so that I don't think there'll be any backlash. Like with our childbirth movie, we had tremendous backlash because they don't, it's hard for the obstetrical community to watch home births, and it's tricky, but
They came around.
They came around. Took 10 years.
Yeah. So Dr. Fetterman, who's in the film, who's at Noah Fetterman, he's one of the leading sarcoma specialists in the world, and he's at UCLA. When Chico's mom first talked to him about the possibility of using cannabis, his response was, you just to do as well just to give him broccoli. And then Chico just happened to have truly one of the hardest times going through chemo that they had ever seen with a child. He had rhabdomyosarcoma. He had to be hospitalized with each treatment because he would have such excruciating side effects. We were having to give him his cannabis through his G-tube to him because, I mean, it was awful. This poor kid suffered more than anything I've seen. But he was able to make it through the chemo, the 14 sessions, without a break, without having to miss any because he was too sick. And Dr. Fetterman said he was shocked. He absolutely had no expectation of Chico being able to do that. And he did come around, and he is now on my board. And we are doing clinical trials. And in fact, we published a paper on preclinical research that we did with Christina Sanchez and Manuel Guzman, who are also in the film, that we just did a paper that we published on using whole plant versus pure compound on treating the 3 major subtypes of breast cancers. That's been published. It's been, Ethan Russo said it's probably the most important paper of the year. And there's the largest oncology group in Quebec, in Canada, has now contacted us that they actually want to do a clinical trial with people. They have about 1,200 new breast cancer patients a year in this one particular subtype. And so I'm actually meeting with them the first week of December up in Quebec to start outlining how we're going to be doing clinical trials in humans.
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you. There's a lot to lose hope for in this world right now, and there's one thing that I have a lot of hope for, and it's moms in this country, and moms who are willing to fight for their kids. And to me, the film represents a galvanizing of a group of women to actually make a difference in this world. So my name is Jessica. I'm with New Era, and I have the pleasure of supporting both Sava and Uv Life, hosting Ricki and Absty on November 3rd up in Sausalito. We'd love to invite you all because we're going to be talking about this and self-caring at the same time.
Oh, you posted today.
Yeah, we posted
today. You did that
today.
Instagram post. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to Reiki heal and upcycle and craft and talk about cannabis, which is going to be nice. So love to have you all there. I was in tech, and I just recently moved over into cannabis, and one thing that's just really hit me hard is the exceptional work that the women are doing in this industry. The level of integrity, the amount of camaraderie and collaboration, and also that we get the least amount of funding. It's really hard to be a woman in this space, and yet there's a lot of really exceptional women who are doing it. And I'm curious because you're fighting the good fight from your angle, and this room is filled with a lot of female cannabis entrepreneurs. So I'd love to know, what is your end state? If you had a magic wand, what would you like to create in this world, and how is it that we as female entrepreneurs can help you in that?
Well, I have such high hopes that this movie's gonna be, because for those of you that maybe are familiar with the business of being born, our first big film, which came out 10 years ago, when we made that film, we really didn't have any idea that it was gonna have, I didn't have any idea that it would have any impact. I just made this very personal project that I had to put out in the world, and to see the impact it's had, the ripple effect of, word of mouth and community screenings, and and it's really affected change. Change has happened, and it takes, they say 10 years to see the change. The home birth rate has doubled in this country, and they say because of our film. The C-section rate has flatlined in this country for the first time in, they say, decades, because of what people are learning with this film. Yeah, and money talks, and they're going in and demanding that protocols change in hospitals, and it's happening. VBAC is being more widely accepted in hospitals. So many changes have happened. So much still needs to happen, but my hope is that what we were able to do with birth is what we want to do with this, with this film, to be the sort of gateway, for lack of a better word, to the mainstream who need to be deprogrammed about this plant. The moms that grew up watching me. I feel like so much of this is aligned. Like my beloved husband, who's not here and was very much the catalyst for this project to begin with. He met Mara at the Cannabis Cup in San Bernardino. He met Mike Hyde, who introduced Mara, and they became like soulmates, soulmates, I guess. He was my soulmate, but soul, you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And for
We
me,
became
you know,
family. Yeah.
I made this talk show, you know, for more than a decade, and yet, you know, I look back on that as like, it was a phenomenon, and it was an amazing gig, but I think I did that show in order to build that mainstream audience that trusts me and likes me and relates to me, and so now I can do these projects that really can be fed to this audience that's willing to eat it because of that you know, platform that I had all those years ago. So I have really high hopes with this film. I mean, unlike The Business of Being Born, we didn't know what we were getting into. This one we kind of do, and to see the change, you know, see the legalization. I mean, the statistics have changed so much since we started back in 2012, you know, that I do think this could be the tipping point. I do.
Yeah. And I do think, also to your point about women too, you know, it's funny because you work on this film, right, for so many years, and you're like, it's about cannabis, but I remember after like one of the Oklahoma City screenings, and that was the first time Sunil Agrawal saw it, one of the doctors in the movie, and he was like, oh, this is a movie about family, about hope, about parents, about communities coming together to heal children, you know? And I was like, it's a very, very hopeful movie, very hopeful. And I think that what you see in the movie in terms of women are these mothers of these children. A lot of the fathers, some of the fathers also play very active roles, but a lot of times, you know, it's this maternal instinct of, I just know there's something more for my kid. There's something more, you know, there's gotta be something more. And it's incredible, like what these mothers can do in these kind of situations, whether it's finding the money to buy the medicine, or just even accessing the medicine, or finding the Maras of the world. You know, that healing drive. And I think what we're seeing right now as an energy, where we're seeing that divine feminine rising, literally rising in this planet and pushing back, you know, and I think this plant is a part of that feminine energy. I think anything that comes from the earth, that's healing, that comes from nature, is part of this energy. So like on a larger level, I think we're looking at, you know, something bigger than just, you know, one herb or one plant or one camp. You know, we're looking at really a moment in time, you know, like a zeitgeist where people are holding on so hard to their truth and learning that they have to advocate for themselves, and it's not about trusting big institutions to protect them and FDA and it's not about that. It's about finding inside, you know, what is going to heal my child, what is going to heal my body, what, you know, what feels right. And I think that kind of empowerment is so precious, and it's like if we, you know, if showing this film opens those doors for anybody who's suffering, you know, to look beyond, you know, what we're offering as a society is poisoning people, is making people sick. The food's making people sick. The drugs are making people sick. The culture, the phones, the everything is so toxic. And I think, you know, for people to have these options, to be able to go a different way is so important. And so I think for people like you and like women in this space who are, you know, who are trying to connect and also show women, in a sense, how to use the plant, you know, because I think it has been very male dominated. You know, we would just like, all we want, it's almost like we just built this movie and this is a tool and we want people to take it and run with it. Like, we don't have a dog in the game. We don't have a cannabis company. We haven't made one.
We're looking for one now. we're actively looking for.
We would like to invest.
Some sort of partnership, because we we kept saying it through the years, like we should be investing in this. We should be, but we don't have money to invest.
Hello, I think you know somebody who could probably help you with that.
I know, we do. We were like, how could we be making this movie for 5 years and not have like invested in one fund or? But you know, I mean, we're not running for office. We don't have like a propaganda. It's really just about like purely putting this tool and this emotional piece of filmmaking out into the world. And so we're just looking for people to partner with us who are aligned with that, who, you know, can just help this rise. Because like you said, it's hard for women in this space, and it's hard even for us, even with Ricki being a known person. I mean, we have to like scrounge for every dime that we raise to do anything. It is like never ending.
But the good news is the movie's made. We will be, I mean, we're doing our theatrical rollout to get, you know, because you can't get national press attention unless you have a theatrical. So we did that. We're doing an Academy run, but we're also going to be on Netflix as of 4/20 of next year.
So I'd like to just say that one of the things is, because I'm a female entrepreneur in this space, own several female-dominated companies, and believe that you need to, when you have the opportunity, if you can hire, you know, if you have 2 candidates for a position and all things are equal, they're not equal. So, you know, it's up to us to make sure that where we can bring in, you know, women manufacturers and extractors and women cultivators and women throughout the various different silos in this industry, we can support them as well, and then find the good ones and lift them up. It's because, you know, rising tides lifts all ships. So if you've got something that you're doing, or you know about someone else that's doing, tell everybody. We're doing a big thing. I just merged one of my companies, the oil plant, which is our manufacturing facility, with a Canadian company that's a Better For You Foods, not in the cannabis space. They're just in California getting into it through me with the Alto brand. But their ethos around Better For You foods, healthy foods, making whatever, you know, we started talking to other companies, and I started looking at pitch decks, and I'm in other people's pitch decks because I support their products, I support their companies, and it's like, oh, now you're pitching us, and here I am. How funny, you know, bad picture, but there I am, you know. Or I wish I had those glasses. But I think that it's important that we all lift each other up together. We also need to promote this film because it is such a women-dominated film, not only in the making of it, but for those of us that are, you know, all the energy in there. And I really, truly believe that if we play our cards right with this and we all get it out there, this can be the anti-reefer madness. This can be the real sanity check, you know, to where when you go around to other states and countries, and I talk to people and they're like, yeah, but I don't want to get high. And that's just about education. That's just about understanding. And you're going to see these kids being highly functional on a lot of cannabis, and they're not all on CBD. Believe me, I can tell you most of what they're on is THC. So I think that also is a very important message that's going to get through. Hemp isn't the answer to everything. CBD is not the answer to everything. It's a whole plant. It has over 133 different cannabinoids. It has 400 different terpenes and all these different profiles, and all together, they're what's important. And we have the opportunity to make a myriad of products, but also to take this into other parts of industry and not just be worried about, you know, having the next gummy bear, having the next, you know, the next thing. So, and the next, God knows we don't need another vape pen. So, you know, if you're looking to get into this space, please find another way in, okay? I'm begging you to please get creative and don't follow the pack, okay? Anyway.
Thank you, three ladies, for sharing this amazing story and very important story. I wanted to ask a little more lighthearted question. I always am interested in people's personal consumption habits. So to all three of you, not to assume, so I'll first ask, do you use cannabis? And then if you do, How often and how do you use it? Do you eat it? Do you vape it? Do you smoke it? Do you use tinctures? So I'm just interested in your personal cannabis usage.
The answer is yes. But I have to say, cannabis was not my medicine. I mean, my husband, who we've been talking a lot about, Christian, it's safe to say he seduced me with edibles. That's how we got together. It was called Big Sexy. I don't know if you know about Big Sexy. But yeah, they're still around, I hope. They had the cookie, Heavenly Crumbs was the flavor that I liked. Anyway, but I've also been I've overdosed myself on edibles, and I've had a really, really tough night, but the best sleep afterwards, you know? So I go in and out because I sometimes can get paranoid, I can get anxious, it keeps me, for me it's different every time, and I know dosing, Mara's a dosing specialist, it's really, and I take Mara's oils, by the way. I have a morning and night protocol, and the topical, and your topical, give you a plug. I'm just getting more and more, I go to the dispensary, I've had my rec for many, many years. Back when I did Dancing with the Stars, I was going for pain and stuff. But it's so interesting how the stigma has changed a lot, particularly in California. I remember when I first got my rec, I wore my hat and my sunglasses, and I'm just trying to be on the DL. But now I'm loud and proud, and I've just learned so much, but I wouldn't say I'm a daily cannabis user. I don't need it. With coffee, I can have it or not, but I certainly look at it as a medicine. It's my first go-to when I have any sort of pain or ailment. It's my go-to.
Yeah, I think that was also interesting because when we were, making this film, again, we were both very outside of the cannabis space. We were not huge consumers, either of us. That wasn't our go-to. We weren't really knowledgeable about it. So I would say I've really been educated through this film about how to be a cannabis consumer in a way that's positive. I would say any experience I had from 13 years old to probably 35 years old was pretty lame. Lame to disastrous. Really, yeah, I was super, super THC sensitive. It was always a disaster. It was always a bad trip. It was always there were just so many, there was a lot of negative, back then, and you never knew what somebody was handing you and what was rolled in it and what was laced in it, and now I find I love Mara's topicals, and it's kind of like wine. It's I've found my grape, I've found my blend, I know how to use, and what's great about it is I feel I'm still exploring it, I feel as the space is sort of becoming more and more sophisticated, right, and there's so much more innovation. I'm open, to trying different things and seeing what those experiences are. And it's been great because I'd say for me, the bottom line is I'm not scared of it anymore. I used to be scared of it, so it's sometimes, if you had an edible and then it hits you 4 hours later and you're what the hell's going, it would be a scary thing. Oh my God, I'm gonna have a heart attack. I'm not scared of it. I understand how it works chemically, and I understand if you get too high, what you can do. And so I think I give it to my children now, it's a totally different relationship, I think.
Well, I used cannabis back in the 70s. Growing up in Texas, you would buy a 3 or 4 finger lid for $10. And the first thing you did was dump it in a shoebox lid with a credit card and get rid of all the seeds and stems. And then you just had the crap left, and that was what we smoked. And, you could pass around about 10 joints before you said, "Are you feeling it yet?" So that was the world I came from, and I hated it. And I thought, it either made me feel paranoid, made me feel disassociated. It just wasn't my world. I actually always liked hashish, but I never liked cannabis, but I didn't use any of it. I have shared publicly before, I'm the youngest of 3, and both of my sisters had drug and alcohol problems. And so the only people I knew after college age that were using cannabis were people who also used other drugs irresponsibly. Now I understand that all drugs can be good. Trust me, I love MAPS. That's a separate topic. But yeah, the point is, when I first started, my husband, who's now been sober for 30 years, had broken his back and had to have back surgery, and we went looking for an alternative to opioids because he refused to use them for surgery, and cannabis was recommended to us. I was extraordinarily skeptical. It was like those people, those stoners, I had the whole And then I went to a dispensary. I went and got a license, or a recommendation at a regular doctor. I couldn't believe I got him to do it. Then I found out that no one was ever around to actually verify when I went to a dispensary. So you have to go to a doc in a box. But I went into a dispensary, and the choices of what the person behind the counter was offering me were so ridiculous, and so there was no understanding around them. They were just absurd that I thought, well, I can do this. I can figure this out. I'm an engineer. I'm going to figure this out. So I went up to Oregon, to the only person I knew. I didn't know anyone in California who grew cannabis. I know, it's kind of hard to believe, living in the Bay Area. I didn't know anyone. I went there. It was the only place I knew someone who grew, and she sold me 2 ounces of XXX Chem Dog. And I came back and I made it into some oil. I'd never heard of decarboxylation, but I put it into my Aunt Zelda's carrot cake recipe because it's very oily, which is where the name of the company came from. And it was like, I was flabbergasted at how well it worked. And then I was furious about the fact that we had been led down this garden path by the medical community and big pharma with opioids and NSAIDs and steroids and all these things, when all I had to do was either eat a little tiny piece of carrot cake or take 1 puff off of a water pipe, and I was out of suffering. I had an excruciating headache at 4 o'clock this morning because of standing all day on a convention floor, and and I have an old broken back, and so I was able to go and take 1 hit and just I would have and not feel medicated at all, just no longer be suffering, because if cannabis is used correctly medically, you don't have to feel high. You just ameliorate whatever the suffering is or the issue that you're trying to. If you want to use a little bit more and feel some of the elation from it, awesome. That's all right too. You don't have to feel bad from your medicine. It's really okay to feel good. So what I do personally, to answer your question, Jim, is I use a device called the Dipper, the dipstick, or whatever, however they're branding it this week. And I use my oils, the same exact extract that these kids are using sublingually. I'm dabbing with this device. And I know how much is in it, I know how much I'm using, and I use sublingual some of our infused olive oils when I need to have like an all-day whatever, but most of the time I'm dealing with something that's acute, and it's like I need to get out of suffering now, not in 2 hours or 20 minutes. And the problem I found with a lot of the new nano delivery things that are out there is they're great and they take effect in 15 minutes, but they also wear off in an hour. And I find you're having to take them over and over and over again. So until that's all been fixed, using my oils the way I do, taking some sublingually, getting long-term 8 to 12 hours of relief from it, because I have a really slow metabolism, and then being able to dab for the instantaneous relief. And I know what's in the medicine, so I know which one I'm using, and I can predict precisely what the effect's going to be because I know what the particular terpene profile is. The THC and CBD, think of them as neutral, and then think of like everything that you put around them is what's going to dictate what the effect is. And so because I know that, I'm able to pick the ones where I can actually curate the response that I'm trying to and the effect that I'm trying to. Like I wouldn't have used this afternoon before we came down here, the one that I used to go to sleep, for example, right?
I would, if I was able to grow it, I would do the raw juicing every single day. I think the raw juicing, oh my God, like Jill, the cancer patient, like she was, growing it this summer, and when I stayed at her house, we would just pick it off the plant in the morning, put it in with the wheatgrass and the blend. It's literally like an antidepressant.
It is. In fact, I can tell you, you'd made the comment at the beginning about seizures are easier. They're easier to measure on camera. They're much more difficult to treat than cancer. I know that sounds crazy, but I'll take cancer any day of the week over epilepsy as far as concentration and specialty. But one of the things that's interesting is a lot of these kids and a lot of these people that are using CBD, that has to have a little bit of THC in there, not just the CBD alone, and it works and then it stops working. And we found that if they then use the raw cannabinoid, the THCA, oftentimes it works even better than the CBD did. So you can do so much with the raw plant with the THC. The other thing is if you don't have the luxury or live in a place where you can grow, or you don't have don't have the lifestyle for it, you can go and take a bud. And if you know that, like for example, it's all math. It's all frickin' math. If you see a bud and the bud is rated at 200 milligrams, it's 20%. They say it's a 20% THC. That means that there's 200 milligrams of THC in 1 gram of flower. So if you want to have 10 milligrams of THCA, you just know you have to take off 1/5 or whatever of that in order to get that dose. It's just a math problem, and you can always do it. But you can take a bud that you can buy like at a dispensary or get from whomever you get it from, and you can use that to juice with or put it in your salad or whatever. You just don't want to put it in your tea or your coffee or your soup or your whatever, because then you're going to turn it into THC, and then you're going to have an entirely different experience.
Yes.
My name is Steve Kirsch. This is my 3rd New West Summit, and it's changed every year, and it's actually been really interesting to have evolved with it, because I just got in the industry about 3 years ago in terms of branding and design. I really want to thank you for this film. I want to host a bunch in the Bay Area, so I'd like to find out how to do it. And it's really important. The one thing that I learned was, and Steve DeAngelis talks about this, is to tell people, where you're going. I was in the lift today. He goes, oh, where are you going? I said, I'm going to a cannabis conference. And it opens up a conversation. And I have 2 kids, 11 and 9. They know I work in this space. And I talk to them about it. And we have really interesting conversations. And they think about it at a whole different level. So I think it's really important to find people to communicate with and share what their involvement is, and that it's okay. That's the only way it's going to change. So
yeah, I agree. And I think also what's interesting too is sometimes I use my parents as barometers for things, because my parents are in their mid-70s and they live in New York, so of course they're exposed, but they're not. They saw this film at South by Southwest. I mean, they were so blown away. They thought it was the most brilliant thing, and they are inviting all of their friends to the New York premiere. And there is, I think since we started making this film, probably one of us will get a call at least once a week for somebody looking. My sister has cancer, my friend has Crohn's, blah, 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 blah. And it's coming now from my parents' friends, family. It's really, I think, I'm hoping that we can get the film, to those groups who don't even know that they should be interested, that the people who are oh, that weed thing, yeah, I know it. You know what I mean? That's really, I think, what we're really hopeful about. Because I think once that door is opened and you see a little bit of the light, it's oh my God, who knew? This is amazing.
I think we're out of time. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sticking around for the hour. It's really a pleasure to talk with you guys.